The human brain is not a static organ, it is a dynamic, self-restructuring system that adapts continuously to the demands we place on it. This capacity for change, known as neuroplasticity, allows us to develop new skills, recover lost function, and, most importantly, build lasting habits. At the core of neuroplasticity lies a simple but profound mechanism: repetition. When a behavior is performed consistently, the neural circuits responsible for executing that behavior begin to fire more efficiently and with greater synchrony. Over time, these pathways become dominant and the behavior becomes automatic. What this means in practical terms is that even the smallest daily actions, if performed with consistency and intention, begin to shape the structure and function of the brain. Repetition doesn't just reinforce memory, it transforms the brain's wiring. This transformation is supported biologically through processes like synaptic strengthening and myelination. Myelin, a fatty substance that insulates nerve fibers, wraps around the axons of repeatedly used neurons, allowing them to transmit signals faster and with greater precision. As a result, repeated behaviors require less conscious effort and become more neurologically efficient. Context and timing also play a pivotal role. When a behavior is linked to specific cues, such as a time of day or a preceding action, the brain begins to associate that behavior with a predictable pattern. These cues enhance the brain's internal prediction model, which sharpens attention and further embeds the habit. Repetition under consistent conditions sends a clear signal to the nervous system: this action matters. The brain responds by allocating more resources to strengthen and preserve that behavioral circuit. The human body is governed by a deeply embedded biological rhythm known as the circadian cycle, a near 24-hour internal clock that orchestrates an extraordinary range of physiological functions, from hormone release and metabolic regulation to alertness, body temperature, and sleep-wake patterns. This system is not arbitrary, it is highly sensitive to environmental cues, especially light, which acts as a primary synchronizer through a neural pathway connecting the eyes directly to the brain's master timekeeper, the suprachiasmatic nucleus as seen in the hypothalamus. Circadian alignment refers to the intentional structuring of behaviors, such as waking, eating, working, exercising, and sleeping, so that they are in sync with this internal rhythm. When these activities occur at biologically appropriate times, the body operates with greater efficiency. Cortisol, which supports wakefulness and energy, rises naturally in the early morning, while melatonin, the hormone that promotes sleep, is released in the evening in response to darkness. When you respect this natural hormonal choreography by engaging in morning light exposure, minimizing artificial light at night, and maintaining a consistent sleep schedule, you allow the brain and body to function in a synchronized, optimized state. Conversely, when behaviors are misaligned with the circadian system, such as staying up late under bright screens, skipping daylight exposure, or eating at irregular hours, the result is a form of internal desynchronization. This state places stress on virtually every system. Cognitive clarity diminishes, mood regulation becomes impaired, metabolic processes slow, and sleep quality deteriorates. Aligning with your circadian biology is not merely a matter of sleep hygiene. It is a foundational strategy for regulating energy, sharpening mental performance, supporting immune function, and maintaining long-term physiological resilience. Dopamine is a critical neuromodulator that underpins human motivation, goal-directed behavior, and reinforcement learning. Far from being merely a chemical associated with pleasure, dopamine is fundamentally about anticipation, effort, and reward prediction. It is the molecule that drives engagement, assigns value to actions, and influences the direction and persistence of behavior. Dopamine operates through dynamic fluctuations, baseline levels that establish our general motivational tone, and phasic peaks that arise in response to perceived progress or meaningful outcomes. The interaction between these levels determines not only how motivated an individual feels in the moment, but also how that motivation is sustained or depleted over time. Habits that cultivate a healthy dopaminergic rhythm are often those that emphasize intrinsic value and effort-based rewards. When individuals engage in structured, deliberate behaviors, such as focused work, exercise, or skill refinement, without relying on immediate gratification, they enhance the brain's ability to associate reward with process rather than outcome. This strengthens dopaminergic tone and builds resilience to delay and discomfort. Over time, the nervous system begins to generate reward signals during the activity itself, creating a feedback loop that sustains motivation without dependence on external stimuli. Conversely, behaviors that cause repeated, unregulated dopamine spikes, such as excessive digital stimulation, impulsive reward seeking, or multitasking, can lead to a reduction in baseline dopamine. This downregulation impairs the capacity for sustained effort and diminishes the perceived value of previously motivating tasks. A well-regulated dopaminergic system relies on contrast, pacing, and context. Spacing out highly rewarding experiences and developing tolerance for low stimulation effort phases helps maintain sensitivity to reward cues and preserves long-term drive. Through consistent behavioral choices, individuals can modulate dopamine pathways in a way that supports adaptive motivation, cognitive clarity, and emotional stability. Stress resilience, the capacity to endure and recover effectively from physical and psychological stressors, is a trainable quality rather than an inherent trait. This resilience develops through the intentional and regulated exposure to controlled stressors, a process grounded in the biological principle of hormesis. Hormesis describes how low-dose, manageable stress activates adaptive responses within the nervous system and cellular pathways, ultimately enhancing the organism's ability to cope with future challenges more efficiently. Exposure to controlled discomfort, such as cold immersion, intermittent fasting, or targeted breathwork, stimulates the autonomic nervous system, particularly activating the sympathetic branch. This initiates a physiological cascade involving the release of catecholamines and glucocorticoids, which prime the body for acute demands by increasing cardiovascular output, energy mobilization, and alertness. Crucially, following these transient stress responses, the parasympathetic nervous system reasserts control to promote recovery, repair, and restoration. This cyclical pattern of stress activation and recovery improves autonomic flexibility, a key marker of resilience, enabling more precise regulation of homeostases during subsequent stress exposures. At a molecular level, these controlled stress exposures modulate neuroendocrine signaling and enhance immunological regulation, promoting anti-inflammatory effects and optimizing cellular repair processes. Psychologically, repeated experiences of manageable discomfort foster adaptive cognitive frameworks, reframing stress as a catalyst for growth rather than threat, thereby improving emotional regulation and reducing maladaptive responses such as catastrophizing. The strategic incorporation of controlled stressors into daily routines serves as a systematic approach to enhance both physiological robustness and mental fortitude, supporting improved endurance, cognitive performance, and overall stress tolerance. Sustainable personal transformation is fundamentally rooted in the principle that behavior drives belief, rather than belief driving behavior. This concept underscores that identity and self-concept are constructed through the repetition of concrete actions, rather than through abstract intentions or mere cognitive affirmations. Consistent, deliberate behaviors provide the brain with experiential evidence that reshapes neural representations of the self, leading to an updated and more resilient internal narrative. The formation and reinforcement of belief systems are tightly linked to neuroplasticity, wherein behavioral repetition strengthens specific neural pathways associated with identity and self-perception. For instance, an individual who consistently engages in disciplined practices such as early rising and regular exercise gradually internalizes an identity aligned with discipline and healthfulness. In contrast, reliance on subjective feelings of motivation or belief without corresponding behavioral validation often results in inertia, as unsubstantiated beliefs lack the neurological foundation necessary for sustained change. From a neuroscientific standpoint, the brain operates on principles of predictive coding, continuously generating expectations based on prior experiences. Repetitive behaviors serve as critical input that refines these predictions and solidifies self-referential beliefs. This mechanism explains why incremental habit changes can precipitate profound shifts in world view and self-identity over time. Through intentional cultivation of small, targeted behaviors reflective of desired qualities, individuals effectively bypass the limitations of fluctuating motivation and foster authentic belief through embodied practice. In application, this framework suggests that identity transformation is most effectively facilitated by deliberate behavior design. Prioritizing consistent, manageable actions over reliance on transient motivational states enables the brain to reconstruct its internal self model, establishing a durable foundation for meaningful and enduring change.